So this week was much easier than most of the other weeks.
Mhm.
Except
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
What did you think about it?
I actually really enjoyed it. I'm an accounting major, so reading about accounting, and that's always fun. And then I'm also taking a stats class that talks about like bias in data, and then I'm taking an English class that talks about like bias in like arguments and stuff. So it was just kind of fun to see that all together.
Yeah, pretty. I actually worked in an in-house audit firm, and basically what they did was allow their clients to bring the documents to their location rather than going to the client. So that was completely biased because you were just at the whim of whatever they presented to you.
Right.
And you never actually got to see the operation to be sure if that's what it was. And then after I stopped working at that audit firm, I worked at a company, and I was a financial administrator, but we had no chief accountant because most of them just left when they came on. It was a lot of the things that were asked were unethical, and at the time I couldn't understand why they were leaving because they were being paid a lot, but most of them they held their morals and ethics above the paycheck.
Right.
And so in that company, the auditors that we had got kept asking me to be able to verify the assets, and my boss just did not want anybody to be able to verify assets. And he just always made excuses that the location of the assets were inaccessible, and just kind of jerked them around for a lot of time until I left the company. That's when I moved out of that country. But I don't know what's going on with that company. I've never heard about them again. I've never kept in contact with them, so I'm not sure.
What country was that?
Guyana.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's in South America.
Mhm.
But the company was owned by Canadians.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yep. So I could. Oh, yeah. I'm running on minimal sleep here, so I'm sorry for yawning.
Oh, you're good.
The example that I got was Jackson & Jackson Audit and Firm has numerous high-profile business clients. One client that comes as 10% of their income and also has close ties to other clients of the firm asked the auditors to understate the company's losses for 2017 so they can continue seeking further investments.
Okay. And is that just like something you made up, or?
Yeah, basically things that I've seen.
Oh, I can't find you. Okay. My example was kind of made up, but kind of about where I work. So I said I work in the housing office on campus in the rent collections department. I place outstanding housing debt holds on students' accounts when they are late in their payments. I could see that if my friend or roommate was behind on payments, I might be tempted in delaying adding a hold to their account. This would be based on familiarity and the justification that I know they will pay soon because I know the individual and their character, rather than strangers who do not pay their rent. But obviously, I don't actually do that in real life.
Yeah. For the record.
I'm honest at work, I promise.
That sounds that sounds good. So which one should we use?
I don't think you necessarily have to use an example. Like, did you read the instructions for the group meeting this week?
I usually never do because it kind of always mirror the individual concept.
Yeah, it's usually all the same, but this week, she said to just talk about the article, and there's a couple questions that we should answer just between the two of us.
Oh, wow.
And then for whoever is recording to just write up a paragraph to submit about like what we talked about.
Okay.
And about the article.
Yeah, I should have definitely read that.
I only read it because the individual submission was just so different, and then I was like, what are we supposed to do?
Okay.
So, but I don't usually read those either.
Okay, so instead of submitting an exam question, your group should meet for 1 hour to discuss the article you read. First, discuss each group method examples to identify where biases exist outside of the audience. How big of an issue is bias in everyday ethical situations? Choose some of the following questions as a guide. Oh, so that's a big question there. So if you're not an accounting student, you're just like business students. For the business student and others who will not be auditors, what kind of education, if any, would help future business professionals avoid bias? Is it pointless? Uh, that kind of is a hard question. I think
it's definitely not pointless. It might not be like a solution, like, because, I mean, in the article it talks about how this is something that we do like unconsciously. But, I mean, educating people on the ways that people do this and just making them more aware of the unconscious bias that takes place, they might be able to recognize it more often.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, what class can you teach someone to help them not to be biased? And first, it's like you have to teach them morals. And from your morals, you'll be guided. Even if you slip into some type of bias because of like some kind of friendship or something like that, one of the categories of being biased, you'll be less likely to continue down that hole. It could happen like a quick slip up, but then you'll be less likely to continue that. Which for most auditors or accountants, that's how it starts. It starts as something that's very trivial, that seems unimportant, and then it grows. It's like the example of an accountant who started taking a little bit off the top for expenses, adding in a few groceries for home, adding in some gas for her car, and then it just kept growing and growing till it became hundreds of thousands of dollars that she had embezzled. And that's how it starts. It starts with one little thing. And I have seen cases where, persons might have used a few bucks from petty cash of a company because they were out. but they stopped it by confronting someone above them, like a supervisor, the next day, and letting them know that this happened because they had no other choice, but they didn't mean it as like theft. And they wanted to let that supervisor know and make a plan to pay that back or reimburse it at that point or something like that. So that's a way that you can eliminate that. I think it really needs to start with the character of the person, like you said. And it does help when your religion plays a part in your education. You know, I think why some employers might be more enticed to hire students from BYU or BYU Idaho is because they understand the the moral beliefs of Latter-day Saints and Mormonism, as a lot of people call it. And I think I read an article somewhere about that. They were addressing why returned missionaries make great interns and great employees. And it's because of, you know, all of that spirituality that they've been through and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, just in all my other classes, I feel like BYU Idaho does a really good job of connecting ideas between different classes. And like I said, like through my statistics class, my English class, like we're also talking about like eliminating bias in different situations. And so I think no matter what people do, like, I mean, especially accounting and audit, because you're dealing directly with money and assets, it's really important to eliminate bias and be ethical. But I mean, that's important in anything you do. Like in research, you couldn't be biased or produce something that isn't true.
Yeah.
In writing, people aren't going to see you as credible if you're biased and make up stuff all the time. So I feel like people, I mean, especially BYU Idaho, does a really good job of educating their students about eliminating bias in any area. And I think that's what all schools should do.
And I think one of the biggest areas right now that in our lives that we're addressing bias is in the legal system and everything that's going on in society at the moment. And you can tell from there that it's not only something that should be taught to one profession, which is like an accounting profession or a legal profession, but it should be taught to everyone from police officers right up. You know, they need to learn how to get ambiguity out of their job, get all of those things out of their job, and to make an unbiased and clear decision in every case.
Yeah, definitely. What are the other questions listed there? Mine won't load.
Yeah, checking a few here. Okay, so basically we're talking about auditors and how they're hired. The auditors suggest that the status quo, the universally accepted practice in the United States of how audit firms are hired, paid, and work with the companies they audit result in bad audits. Do you agree? That's the first question. Why do you think when Congress passes the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, they weren't more radical reform like the one suggested by the auditors? I definitely know that auditors are likely to be less harsh in that year that they might be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with an audit company that is really open to bias, and I've worked with one who held up their moral standing because um they had like a seal. It's like a recognition by the ACC board, which is basically an accounting board based out of the London. And Ghana was a British colony, so they were kind of ruled under British law. So to have that seal from ACCA meant that they had high morals and they were free of most of the biases of the country. So I've worked with both types of auditors that way, and I can tell you that for one, smaller firms who do not adhere to the hiring policy, which is one company cannot be half of your income. That's why in the example that I put, that client was 10%, but they also had ties to other clients who altogether could be probably like 50%. And when you have one client that holds or has control over 50% of your revenue stream, you're not going to want to, yell at that person for not accounting for everything, or you're probably going to let them increase their depreciation to, inflate their profits a little bit more. And that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't let that happen. And uh that's some of the things that auditors struggle with. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, auditors, especially for large firms, they are supposed, like, I don't know if it's something that the company decides, but I think it's based on law, but maybe that's just for British law. But they are supposed to be removed every 4 years at the AGM.
Okay.
You're doing U.S. accounting. Is that the same here? Have you ever done a law classes yet? An audit classes yet?
Not yet. No, I'm just in the basics of financial and managerial accounting right now.
Okay. And I think that's what it is, that they're supposed to be removed to ensure that there's no bias. Because if you have one auditor constantly auditing the company, then they'll become familiar. And then familiarity is another bias situation that will occur.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you have so much real life experience with what we're learning.
Yeah. I hated it. Being the middle ground of an employer who did not want to comply, and then having, on the other hand, these people who are in your field, because I was studying to be an auditor, and when I left that company, I would want to work at a firm like theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But they're seeing me as someone who does not want to comply.
Yeah.
So how am I going to go into a small country, into that auditing community? I'm already going to be like blacklisted. So I just, I was in a rock and a hard place. So I was kind of happy that I made a change.
Yeah, definitely. My goodness.
But I think once, as an audit firm, like once you start allowing clients to get away with stuff, it's going to just keep going over to all of your clients. And eventually you're going to be a firm that can't, you have no morals and you won't have any type of standing. It's just going to all be for the money.
Yeah, I can't remember what company it was, but in all my accounting classes, they always talk about this one company that had been like doing some money scam for years, and the audit company that was doing like all their audits had been working with them throughout this like scam.
Yeah.
And they eventually got caught, and both companies were completely shut down.
Yeah, I think I heard about that. I'm trying to recall the name.
Yeah, I can't believe I can't remember because in every single accounting class, they always mention this like crazy story
Yeah,
where
it
two
was really
companies
big.
got like shut down.
Yeah, it blew up. A lot of people lost their investments as well. I think it was retirement investments that they were playing with.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the company.
But
I
yeah,
I
it's
think there
crazy.
was it was also in the news that there was like a Latter Day, like a very well known Latter Day Saint that was a part of something like that, and like that stained the church's reputation for a while just because he was a member. So
Mhm.
like newscasters just jumped on that, you know.
Yeah, of course. My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's crazy what people can get away with when people checking up on them
Yeah.
is like brushing it under the carpet too.
Yeah.
That's why I think probably so important that we learn about it.
I really like one of the questions was think about a situation outside of auditing where there are lots of opportunities for bias and just thinking about that. I like the examples that the instructor give. Do you
Hmm.
call them instructors or professors? I'm not sure.
I call them professors, but people call them instructors. So,
Yeah, so I like the example that Sister Stone gave about being a teacher, and that you
hmm
might be more enticed to give a grade to someone who always comes to like an office meeting. And I have had a class where two of my group mates were arguing about that because one of the ladies, it was an English class, and one of the ladies, she was really versed in everything about literature, and I think she was just doing the class to get another degree or something. And then there was another one who was like in a learning process, and she scored higher than the other girl. And so they were talking about it, and she was saying, I think that this teacher, scored me incorrectly. She was harsh, and she didn't give me room. And the other girl was like, oh, I got it so easy and stuff like that. And she's like, but I talk to her every day. I email her at least once a week, and I always go to the office meetings. And she likes me. That's what she says. So the other lady was upset, thinking that that was like just her being biased.
yeah. And I think they don't even mean to because, like, my husband, he's super good at always meeting with the teacher, asking questions, staying after class just to chit chat
Hmm.
with the professor and just, I don't know, getting to know them pretty well and like being friendly. Whereas me, like, I don't know, I usually like go to class, come out of class. I only talk to the professor if something's like really wrong. I've tried to be better at that, but I'm just, I don't know, I'm not as friendly as he is and outgoing. And when it comes down to it, like at the end of the semester, professors really help out my husband. Like studied so hard. I'm in your office like every week asking for help, and they usually like bump up his grade with no problem. Whereas if I were to try to do that to a professor that I never really talked to, then they'd be like, "No, sorry, this is what you got."
Yeah.
So
I think they count that interaction as like an extra effort.
yeah,
And I am like you. Uh, I don't know, speaking correct English is not my native tongue. We in Ghana you speak Creolese.
hmm
Sometimes if I'm trying to be comfortable around someone, then and I start speaking Creole, and they're like looking at me like, "What are you saying?" So like sometimes I'm not so open to having conversations with persons outside of my cultural background.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, okay. My daughter here is correcting me. She loves to do that. uh, so it's I guess that's why I don't always like interact with teachers, or other classmates and stuff like that. And I'm very brief, especially on discussion boards. Like people are writing paragraphs and paragraphs. And I'm thinking, what, where, why?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it.
Yeah.
But I've seen persons who are excessively. It can be both. Yeah. Persons who are excessive on discussion boards getting like better grades. And I guess that's because the instructors are counting that as extra efforts as well.
Mm-hmm. I also liked her other example of like ambiguity when, like, if she gives an assignment, she has to be careful to make it really clear and nothing to be like left up to interpretation.
Yeah.
And I'm taking an English class right now, and it talks about how like there's so much ambiguity in like everyday language, even like when we say I'll see you later, or I don't know, just in like phrases we use and stuff, like we really need to specify like later. What does that mean? Does that mean 10 years from now? Does that mean in a couple hours? And like when people write or whatever, it's just so easy for things to be taken different ways.
That's I like this show. It's called The Good Doctor. It's about a young guy. He has autism,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the elements of autism is that uh, he doesn't make ambiguous statements. So if you say to him, "I'll see you later," he would need like a definite answer of when later, what time, and everything. So that just came across my mind when you were saying that, and I am so guilty of ambiguity, and I didn't realize that because almost everyone I talk to, I always say, "Okay, we'll hang out later," and later never comes.
Yeah.
It's just like a statement I use to probably end the conversation or just to be friendly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I have a class where it's a writing class, a business writing class, and most of the assignments uh, are very ambiguous. And the teacher addressed that issue and said that it's that way because he wants to have us be creative with our writing. So, like, my problem is always, what if the first one he starts to score is so good that he just starts marking down everyone else based on the level that that person set, which might be just 1 out of 1 million. He was just like, that person was just able to just really hit the target and take it out of the ballpark with it.
Yeah.
But that's the situation that we're in. And I don't think any professor at BYU is ever really marking students down just because. I think they always try to help you, to get at least a good grade or improve in areas that you should.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely harder to, I don't know, accomplish things when it's ambiguous. And so definitely in like audit and stuff, you'd need to be super clear and leave nothing up to interpretation. So that was interesting. I like that.
Yep. So you know how hard it is now to be an auditor and an accountant and what is expected of you, and that it's not going to always be shiny days.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I can remember days where, as a financial administrator or even as like a junior accountant in a firm where your boss will come and just say they need to have this done, and it's just not in the budget, and you're not supposed to do that, and then they're like, oh, take it out of another budget. So now you're playing with like your conscience. Oh, should I do this? Should I leave someone else undone? Yeah, it's not
Mhm.
easy.
Yeah.
I have a cousin. Her boss is really kind to her. But one day he called her and asked her, "Oh, just sign this document for me so I can get this one released to do, whatever he needs to do." So she's stuck in that place where she has an amazing boss that allows a lot of free time and stuff like that. But he's asking her to do something that she's not too sure she should do. So, like, those are situations that you're always going to find in like accounting or financial positions.
Yeah. That'd be hard.
Yep. Stick in there.
Yeah, definitely. We had a forensic accountant come in and talk to um, our class about what he does, and that is some scary stuff. Like, this guy was telling us about how his life has been threatened, his family has been threatened because of like the work that he's doing, and people don't want him to figure out the truth of where the money went and who did it and how they embezzled all the money or whatever. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
years I've
it's
always
scary.
thought that accounting was such an exciting um, job, and I was like, there's movies about everything, but why not about accounting? And then there's like that movie now about that guy. There's a movie about called The Accountant. So
Mhm.
basically, I didn't see the entire thing, but it's just that he was like, I think he was like a forensic accounting, and he was tracking like the spending of one of their clients or something, and then realized that the client was embezzling. And
Mhm.
he tried to confront them. They try to kill him and stuff like that. Yeah, basically we're like whistleblowers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I have to go to another school thing at 7:30.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go. But are you okay to write up the paragraph, or would you need me to?
No, I can do that. I'll just replay the video and make a quick paragraph about that. That won't be hard.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks so much, Anne, for meeting me.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.